Matt Eckert, President, CEO, and Grand Poobah out at Holiday World in Indiana. Thank you so much for joining us on the Attraction Pros COVID-19 video series. How you doing, Matt?
Pretty good. I apparently need to add Grand Poobah on my business card now. I've never been called that before, so I'll take it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So can you kind of give us a rundown of, I know you're not a fan of coronavirus, but can you kind of give us
I'm not. That's one of my least favorite things ever in my life, probably, as is the rest of the world. So.
Right. Can you give us a rundown of kind of how this has affected you and Holiday World and kind of what's been happening during this time for you guys?
Sure. So, like most industries, but especially I think for the tourism industry, this has kind of brought us to our knees. It's really punched us in the gut pretty hard, but I think that's true to form for all theme parks, all attractions of all sizes. Originally we opened up on the first weekend of May. Clearly, with the pandemic being where it is now, we weren't able to do that, and we are currently targeting an opening date of June 14th as of right now, and that's in line with the back on track plan that the governor of Indiana has laid out for the state in order to try to start getting businesses and the economy back up and running. That's obviously tracking cases of confirmed COVID cases and making sure that that's moving in the right direction. So that's the plan currently. For us, like I said, we began a stay-at-home order back in March. We had all of our employees staying at home for, it seems like forever, but at the same time, it seems like it went very quickly at the same time. And we still do have some employees that are working from home. Those that can do their jobs from home, we're having them continue to do so. But we have slowly over the past few weeks, under the state's guidance, been bringing people back on site. So we've been bringing our maintenance guys and our carpenters and our painters, and a lot of our operations people are starting to come in, and still adhering to all of the social distancing guidelines, all the CDC guidelines, wearing masks when social distancing isn't appropriate. And I've got my mask right here, so whenever I walk outside, I make sure that that's on. But we're known worldwide for being the cleanest park in the world, 2 decades in a row. And what I've told the team is that's not enough now. Like, that's being the cleanest park, we got to be 50,000 times more than what we were. So my team's done a really fantastic job of coming up with a massive amount of documentation and plans and procedures for pretty much every single scenario that you can possibly imagine. If you look at it, the theme park world, from a guest perspective and from an employee perspective, we want to make sure that both are addressed. But from a guest perspective, from the time that guest pulls into the parking lot, we have to look at their journey throughout the entire day. Like, what are all the possible things that Matt Heller and Josh Liebman might do at our park, and how are we going to protect them? And so we've broken it down that way. And then conversely, for our employees, same thing. From the time Matt Heller pulls into our employee parking lot and he clocks in, how are we going to make sure that he is protected throughout the day until the time he goes back home? So it's a huge undertaking. Like I said, it's been eye-opening in a lot of ways, and it's really forced our team to be even more collaborative than they were before, and it's made it more difficult to do when we're doing everything pretty much by Zoom like we are now. But slowly and surely we'll get there, and it's just being dedicated to the craft and making sure that we're doing the right thing, and we'll come on top. So I keep telling everyone.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been really interested in is, how businesses, or obviously attractions in particular, are reassuring guests of their cleanliness standard, and what can they take from pre-COVID operations to be able to bring that into the communication. So like one of my clients, used some data as far as cleanliness perception, from 2019, and said it was 95% across all of our locations. It was chain of family entertainment centers. So curious how you're using your reputation of world's cleanest park to be able to
Sure.
bring that and say, you can come back here because of how we've always been, not just because of everything else you're going to see in the future.
Sure. And I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Is we're just really focusing on re-emphasizing that message of Like I said before, we're known for being the cleanest park, but that's not enough for us anymore. We're taking it a step higher. And so, we're installing 90 hand sanitizers stations throughout the park. So we're going to have those, outside of attractions and outside of food locations. And so pretty much everywhere possible. All of our employees are going to be wearing masks. Again, is by the time stage 4 rolls around for the state of Indiana, masks are technically recommended, not required, but we are thinking we're going to require all of our employees to wear masks during any type of public interaction. I mean, if they're going to be out in the park, then they need to be wearing masks. It will be optional for guests, obviously, and many of our guests will choose to do so, and that's fine. But we're being very cognizant too of, we're going to publish our sanitation plans online. Like, you can go to our website and you'll be able to see all of the increased measures that we're taking to ensure that every facet of the park is going to be clean and sanitized and safe.
So Matt, you mentioned earlier, if Josh and I were coming to the park, looking at our whole journey, right? I can just tell you that if it were me, all you have to worry about is the voyage. That's where I'll be. So I'll be there all day long. But I am curious, that can take you down a lot of rabbit holes, right? In terms of, well, I guess could do this or it could do that. So I'm curious what those meetings were like, and how long did those meetings take, and what was involved in all that planning?
We've been meeting 24 hours a day since March 23rd, pretty much. Sleep is not a word that I'm really all that familiar with. But no, again, I can't give enough credit to all our team members, and we've had several large group meetings of just throwing out different scenarios and things. So like you mentioned, the voyage. Okay, well, when you ride the voyage, what are we going to do to make sure that you feel like it's safe for you to do so? So one of the things we've done is, if you think about going to a theme park, what's something that guests all have to do when they go to an attraction? They have to wait in line. So when you're waiting in a line, how close are you to people when you do that? Extremely close. So we said, okay, well, what can we do to eliminate that, but still minimize the amount of time that our guests have to wait in line? So we partnered up with Accesso, and we are actually this year going into virtual queuing. So how that will work is, guests will be able to enter a line virtually on their smartphone, or they'll be able to go to guest relations and get a wristband, and they can enter. You can then you can enter the voyage line at that time. 15 minutes before it's time for you to board, you will get a text message telling you to report to the voyage. We will have an attendant there that will then scan your smartphone, and you'll have to wait no more than 5 to 10 minutes to get on the ride. Once you're up there, then we're going to have attendants who will kind of group people together. So if you came with your family, you're fine to ride in one vehicle or within a certain distance, but we're going to make sure there's adequate spacing. There's going to be 6-foot spacing on all of the attractions to ensure that we maintain that social distancing. If there's an attraction that we can't ensure that there is a 6-foot social distance, then we're just not opening it up.
Mm. What sort of? Oh, go ahead, Josh.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, normally this is a very large revenue center for parks for what you just described. Is this an additional fee, or is this included with general admission?
Accesso has actually partnered with us, and that's going to be part of general admission. So since we are only opening Holiday World 2 in the beginning, we have cut our price quite a bit as well, since they're not getting the water park from the beginning. Another state guideline too that we're having to adhere to, which is just, and I'm glad we're doing it, is attendance is going to be capped every day. And we're only going to allow guests you can't buy a ticket at the gate. You have to purchase your ticket online or be a season pass holder. So we built into our model, based on historical attendance, about how many season pass holders we anticipate. And then we have a set number of tickets that we're going to sell online each day, so that we know exactly how many people are going to become, and we can kind of plan accordingly. So for example, if we're looking close to being in our capacity, then every little tenet of our plan goes into place. If, let's say, 1/5 of what we thought was actually going to be there that day, because who knows, we still don't know what consumer demand or confidence is going to be in a month. We can kind of modify our plans as we go there, and maybe we don't need to open as many food locations as we had initially planned if we have 1/5 of the attendance coming. So we can kind of, gauge it that way. But, the end result is, we're going to do what's best for our guests. We're going to do what's best for our employees to make sure that, they feel confident and safe while they're here, and know that they're here to have a good time. I think we're all ready to kind of get out and have a good time right now. So we want to make sure people feel like it's okay to do that.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that because, in different pockets of the country, there seems to be somewhat of a different feel. Some places where there might be more of a hot spot,
Right.
there might not be as ready to get out. Sounds like they're in Indiana, at least where you are, people are ready to go and ready to get to the park. Is that kind of what you're feeling?
I think it's a mixed bag. If you watch our social media, by and large, it seems like, people are very excited and receptive. And of course, you're going to have those too that just aren't ready. And I get that. I understand. I completely, understand that too. And so for those who aren't comfortable now, hopefully by 2021, this will all be a very bad memory for us. And, they'll be ready to come back and ready to go.
Sure. Yeah. Now, based on everything that you just described, as far as changes to the operations, changes to the guest experience, how many of these do you anticipate are part of, the reopening phased plans, and what do you see as just being new parts of the experience? Everything that you just described with Accesso and just not waiting
Right.
in line. Well, that's generally, that will probably be very well received by,
Exactly.
all the world guests, but, by the industry as a whole. So where do you kind of see that going, of just saying, what, maybe it was time to, refine the guest
Sure.
experience?
Well, that's something I've said all along too, is I'm, as Matt could probably attest, I'm the kind of person that I try to find the positive in everything that happens. And clearly with COVID-19, there aren't really a whole lot of them to point to, but at the same time, as you just addressed, I think this has kind of forced us into a corner, so to speak, and we've kind of come out swinging, saying, okay, COVID-19, this is what you've given us. This is what we're going to do now. And this is going to change the way we do things going forward. And the virtual queuing is one of those things. On the employee side, one of the things that has been limiting for us is we can't train our employees because they haven't been able to come on site. So we've been doing a lot of that virtually, but part of that too is to become an employee, you've got to get all your paperwork filled out, and you got to get all your paperwork turned in, and you couldn't come here to do that. So it pushed us in the direction of, okay, let's go to virtual onboarding. Let's figure out a way that we can have our employees, we can interview them by the phone. We can have all of the documents available for them electronically. They can fill them out on their smartphone. They can upload them right then. All that's left to do is bring in ID verification for their I-9s, and that's it. So that too has been a game changer in the sense of being able to keep our employee flow moving. But going forward, it's something we're going to continue doing, because again, with the generation that we're dealing with now, they live and breathe by, their devices, and that's the way to do it. And I can attest, I have 2 teenage daughters. They never check email. Like, that's not something they do. I said, if we can figure out how to roll this all out through Snapchat, that's the way to do it. But right now, texting, it seems to be a good way to facilitate that, and it's worked out really well. So again, there's those kinds of things, Josh, that we're trying to say, okay, this has made us do this, but good. This is something we probably should have done anyways. We weren't going to do it, but now we have to. So if it works out well, we'll continue.
Matt, I wanted to ask you, from your own personal perspective, obviously, what's going into the cleanliness of the park and things like that. What do you feel about, like, if you had to go someplace and get on a plane? Is that something you would do, or kind of just judging your own consumer confidence?
Right. That's a good question. Getting on a plane right now, I think I would, because if you look at all of these tourism attractions and tourism destinations, I think if anything, the cleanliness standards are above and beyond what they were before. So I would say if I get on a plane now, it's probably more sanitary than it was when I got on a plane 1 year ago, really. So I think that, yeah, I think I would be okay with it.
Yeah. And that was kind of my thought too. I kind of thought about it like the airlines are probably doing everything they can, just like you've been talking about holiday worlds. You
Right.
guys are doing everything you can, right? I know for me, I'm going to take my precautions. I can't control everybody else, but that's
Right.
2 out of 3, right? I can control myself. I know that the airline's doing that well. And I'm hoping that people will see that coming back to the parks as well. And they'll feel like, okay, Holiday
Sure.
World has done all this. I can take my responsibility, but I can't control everybody else, but that's still not going to ruin my day, I guess.
Right. And I think that's the key. And that's something that, you have to hope that common sense will set in for people, and that they will just use their common sense and do those things that they should have been doing every day anyways. If you don't feel well, don't come to the park, don't get on a plane, don't go out in public, stay home. If you cough into your sleeve, don't cough out into the open. If the social norm right now is to wear a mask, wear a mask. It's just be cognizant and be respectful of those around you. And I think that's what's going to lead to this virus clearing itself up, is if we can just all kind of work together and take care of ourselves. By taking care of ourselves, we can take care of each other.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that I'm curious about too, and maybe this kind of goes back to the overarching topic of kind of looking at some silver linings at some things. Being a seasonal park and a seasonal operation, losing May 2nd to June 14th obviously is a larger percentage of your overall operating year compared to
Right.
parts in Florida or Southern California.
Right.
But even looking at it through that other lens, is there any advantage from that standpoint? Because number of days lost is less. I would imagine that number of staff members that needed to be furloughed, that there wasn't the immediate disruption to your operation, given that it happened prior to your season scheduled opening.
Right.
And maybe I'm completely wrong on all accounts, but I'm trying to look at it from the the seasonal and the year-round lens. And
Right.
did you feel there were any advantages from that standpoint?
Well, of course, I'm biased, so I feel like we're being affected more adversely than anyone else.
Right.
But to that regard, I think as you just said, we have 118 days, so we don't have the advantage of some of the year-round operations who, let's say, they're able to open on June 14th. They're still going to be open for the rest of the year. We still have a limited number of days that we're able to recoup any sort of revenue. And then if that attendance is capped, then obviously that's going to be detrimental to us as well. Add on to that, we've had a lot of additional expenses for PPE and some capital expenditures that are going into place to make this virtual queuing possible. So there's a lot of those kinds of expenses that weren't originally planned that are now hitting a budget where no revenue is being matched up to it. So I would say seasonal businesses are at a pretty big disadvantage in that regard, because we don't have as much time to make it up.
Right.
Matt, can you talk a little bit about your labor plan? Just because, you mentioned before, if an attraction, for example, can't open to the standard that you need it to be, for regulations and things like that, you're not going to open it. Well, that would theoretically save that labor that would be put into running that attraction. But are you also considering putting people in other places, like to help with social distancing or help with cleanliness and, bulking up other areas where you might not have done that in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're in a very rural area. We're in a town of 2,500 people. So making sure we have enough employees on a good year is still a struggle for us. And I think it's a struggle everywhere universally, just because the demand is always much higher than what the supply is, it seems like. That being said, we will make sure that every single person we have is utilized in the best way that makes the most sense that day. So if it is a scenario where we don't open attraction for X, Y, or Z, then we're gonna send you somewhere else to make sure that we are doubling up or tripling up or quadrupling up to make sure we're following all the standards that we've set.
Yeah, in some cases, it feels like, people might be getting ready for another grand opening, right? Whenever you have something that is the grand opening, you've got all the people, right? You've got
Right.
more people than you ever think you need, and then you pare back
Right.
as you figure out what the operation is. So that's kind of what this feels like to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this was, we had a marquee attraction going in this year too. Cheetah Chase was coming on board, and, we were poised for a pretty strong year. Now, obviously Cheetah Chase isn't going to be packing quite the punch that we had hoped it would be. It will. And it's a fantastic ride, a fantastic attraction. And we're super, super excited about it. But unfortunately, it's making a debut in a year that wasn't all that ready for it.
True.
Yeah. Well, Matt, this has been really enlightening, and I appreciate you sharing all of your insight and your positivity about, kind of silver linings, as Josh put it. So, as we kind of wind this down, are there any kind of last thoughts that you had that you wanted to share with our audience about kind of your outlook and where we're going?
I think, just like everything, I made the comment, I think we need to take care of ourselves to take care of each other. And, we are an industry that relies on our guests, but we also rely heavily on our employees. Our employees are who make us who we are. And, I say all the time, Holiday World wouldn't be where we were if it weren't for the fantastic people that we have. And those fantastic people are dedicated to making sure that not only Holiday World thrives, but the entire industry thrives. We're part of a family, and that family is part of the attractions industry. And I think we as an organization and as a group and as a association, we've got to rise above this. We've got to show that we're willing to do whatever it takes to get back up and running in a safe manner and making sure that we're doing things right. And I think that I'm optimistic. We're going to get through this. Like I said, this is someday going to be a bad memory, but it'll just be that. It'll be a memory.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, this was a really interesting conversation. We really appreciate you taking the time, and we hope to be able to follow along and see that June 14th opening, and be able to see what that looks like from your standpoint, and from the industry, from your guests.
Come on up and visit. I'd love to have you guys.
Will do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and looking forward to when we can meet again in person.
Sounds good. You guys too. Thank you.